The stagecoach rattled into San Francisco with the sound of hope and uncertainty, carrying Catherine Bradford and her 4-year-old daughter Emma toward a future that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Catherine pressed her face to the dusty window, watching the bustling streets of California's most vibrant city unfold before her. It was the summer of 1875, and San Francisco was a wonder of wooden buildings, mud-caked streets, and people from every corner of the world. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she clutched Emma closer. The child had fallen asleep against her shoulder, exhausted from the long journey from Boston where their old life had crumbled into nothing but painful memories. She had answered the advertisement 3 months ago, corresponding with a man named Warren Irving who owned a ranch outside the city limits. His letters had been kind, thoughtful, and he had never once mentioned that a widow with a child would be unwelcome. Still, Catherine's stomach twisted with worry. What if he took one look at Emma and changed his mind? What if the man who had seemed so understanding on paper was different in person? The stagecoach lurched to a stop outside the depot, and Catherine gathered her courage along with her meager belongings. She smoothed down her traveling dress, knowing it was hopelessly wrinkled and dust-covered. Emma stirred, rubbing her dark eyes with small fists. "Mama, are we here?" The little girl asked, her voice thick with sleep. "Yes, sweetheart. This is San Francisco. This is our new home." Catherine tried to inject confidence into her voice that she did not feel. She climbed down from the stagecoach with Emma in her arms, setting the child on her feet before retrieving their single trunk and carpetbag. The driver tipped his hat and drove away, leaving them standing alone on the crowded street. Catherine looked around, searching for a tall man with dark hair and blue eyes, as Warren had described himself. Mrs. Bradford. She turned toward the voice and found herself looking up at a man who matched the description, but was somehow more than she had imagined. Warren Irving stood well over 6 feet tall, with sun-bronzed skin that spoke of long days working outdoors. His dark hair curled slightly at the edges beneath his wide-brimmed hat, and his blue eyes held a mixture of nervousness and genuine warmth. He was perhaps 30 years old, dressed in clean but well-worn ranch clothing, and there was a kindness in his face that made Catherine's racing heart slow just a fraction. "Mr. Irving," she said, extending her hand. "Yes, I am Catherine Bradford." Warren took her hand gently, and she noticed the calluses that marked a working man. His gaze dropped to Emma, who was hiding behind her mother's skirts, peeking out at this stranger with cautious curiosity. "And who is this?" Warren asked, his voice softening as he crouched down to be at eye level with the child. "This is my daughter, Emma. I mentioned her in my second letter." Catherine held her breath, waiting for his reaction. Warren's face broke into a genuine smile that reached all the way to his eyes. "You certainly did. It is a pleasure to meet you, Miss Emma. I am very happy you are both here." Emma studied him with the serious expression that only a 4-year-old could manage, then slowly reached out and touched the star-shaped badge pinned to his vest. "Are you a sheriff?" "No, little one. I am just a rancher. This belonged to my father. He was a good man, and I wear it to remember him." Warren's voice held a note of sadness that Catherine recognized all too well. "My papa is in heaven," Emma announced matter-of-factly. "Mama says he watches over us." Catherine felt her cheeks flush, but Warren simply nodded solemnly. "I am sure he does, and I think he would be glad to know you and your mama are going to be safe and happy now." He stood and looked at Catherine, and she saw something in his expression that eased the knot of anxiety in her chest. There was no judgment, no disappointment, only a quiet acceptance that felt like the first genuine kindness she had received in a very long time. "Shall we get your things loaded up?" The ranch is about an hour's ride from here, and I would like to get back before dark. The roads can be difficult after sunset. Warren picked up her trunk as though it weighed nothing and headed toward a sturdy wagon hitched to two bay horses. Catherine took Emma's hand and followed, feeling as though she was walking into a dream. She had expected so many things, but not this gentle man who looked at her daughter with such immediate acceptance. The ride to the ranch took them through the outskirts of San Francisco and into rolling hills dotted with oak trees and wild grass that rippled in the late afternoon breeze. Warren kept up a steady stream of conversation, pointing out landmarks and telling Emma stories about the horses and the ranch. Catherine found herself relaxing for the first time in months, watching the way Warren's face animated when he talked about his land. "I have been running the ranch for about 5 years now," Warren explained as they traveled. "After my father passed, I took over the operation. We raise cattle and horses, and I have a small crew of men who help with the work. It is a good life, but it can be lonely. That is why I placed the advertisement." "I understand loneliness," Catherine said quietly, and Warren glanced at her with understanding. "Your husband has been gone for how long?" 2 years. He was killed in an accident at the shipyard where he worked. After that, everything just fell apart. His family blamed me somehow, and they made it very clear that Emma and I were not welcome. We had nothing left in Boston, no family, no prospects." Catherine paused, then added honestly, "When I saw your advertisement, it felt like Providence." "I am glad you answered it," Warren said simply. "I have been exchanging letters with several women, but yours were different. You were honest about your circumstances, and you wrote with intelligence and heart. I knew from your first letter that you were someone special." Catherine felt warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she had not experienced in so long that she had almost forgotten what it was like. "I tried to be truthful. I did not want to deceive you about Emma. Some men would not want to take on another man's child." "Then those men are fools," Warren said firmly. "A child is a blessing, not a burden. When you wrote that you had a daughter, I will admit I had to think about it, but then I realized something. I had been asking God for a wife, and he was offering me a family. It seemed ungrateful to turn down such a gift." Emma, who had been listening to their conversation while watching the landscape roll by, suddenly spoke up. "Are you going to be my new papa?" The directness of the question hung in the air for a moment. Catherine felt her face flush, but Warren handled it with the same gentle ease he had shown since they met. "Would you like me to be?" he asked the little girl seriously. Emma considered this with her characteristic thoughtfulness. "I think so. You seem nice. And you have horses. I like horses." Warren laughed, a warm sound that made Catherine smile despite her embarrassment. "Well, we have that in common then. I like horses too. How about this? We will get to know each other and we will see how things go. That sound fair?" "Fair," Emma agreed, then turned her attention back to the passing scenery. The ranch appeared as they crested a hill, and Catherine caught her breath. A sturdy 2-story house sat in a valley surrounded by fenced pastures where horses and cattle grazed. There were several outbuildings, including a large barn, a stable, and what looked like a bunkhouse. Everything was well maintained, speaking of a man who took pride in his property. In the distance, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Welcome home," Warren said softly, and Catherine felt tears prick at her eyes. Home. She had not had a real home since her husband died. The cramped boarding house room in Boston had been merely a place to sleep, nothing more. But this could be a true home. Warren helped them down from the wagon and carried their belongings into the house. The interior was clean but obviously lacking a woman's touch. The furniture was practical and sturdy, the kind that men chose for durability rather than beauty. But Catherine could see the potential immediately, could imagine curtains at the windows and a tablecloth on the dining table and fresh flowers in a vase. "I know it is not much," Warren said, seeming almost shy as he showed them around. "I have never been very good at the decorating side of things. But I want you to feel free to change whatever you like. This is your home now." "It is wonderful," Catherine said honestly, "far better than I expected." He showed them the kitchen, which was well equipped with a modern stove and plenty of workspace. Then he led them upstairs, where there were 4 bedrooms. The master bedroom was clearly his, but he had prepared one of the other rooms for Catherine and another for Emma. "I thought you might want your own space," Warren explained. "Until we have the wedding, I mean. I want you to be comfortable. There is no pressure, no expectations. We can take our time getting to know each other." Catherine was touched by his consideration. She had worried that he might expect immediate marital intimacy, as was his legal right once they were wed. But here he was, offering her time and space and respect. Emma was delighted with her room, which had a window overlooking the pastures and a small bed with a colorful quilt. "It is beautiful," the little girl breathed, running her hands over the quilt. "Did you make this?" "My mother did," Warren said. "She passed when I was young, but my father kept all her things. I thought you might like it." "I love it," Emma declared, and threw her arms around Warren's legs in an impulsive hug. Catherine saw something shift in Warren's expression, a softening that went beyond simple kindness. He crouched down and returned Emma's hug gently, and Catherine realized with a start that this man was already beginning to care for her daughter. That night, after Catherine had settled Emma into bed and unpacked their few belongings, she found Warren in the kitchen preparing a simple supper. He had laid out bread and cheese and cold roasted chicken, along with fresh fruit. "I am not much of a cook," he admitted. "One of the ranch hands usually helps with meals, but I sent everyone home early today. I thought you might want some privacy on your first night here." "That was thoughtful," Catherine said, helping him set the table. They ate together in comfortable silence, and afterward, Catherine insisted on washing the dishes while Warren put away the leftovers. As they worked side by side, Catherine felt a strange sense of rightness settle over her. This man was essentially a stranger, and yet being near him felt natural, easy. He did not hover or make demands. He simply existed beside her, a steady presence that promised safety and companionship. "I want you to know that I take marriage seriously," Warren said suddenly, breaking the silence. "When we exchange vows, I will mean every word. I will be a faithful husband to you and a good father to Emma. You have my word on that." Catherine turned to look at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "I believe you, and I promise the same. I will be a good wife and help you build a life here. Emma and we are grateful for this chance." "I am the one who should be grateful," Warren said quietly. "This house has been empty too long. It needs the sound of a child's laughter. It needs you." The wedding took place 3 weeks later in a small church in San Francisco. Catherine wore a simple dress of pale blue that she had sewn herself from fabric Warren had bought for her in town. Emma stood beside her mother, clutching a handful of wildflowers, her dark curls adorned with a ribbon that matched Catherine's dress. Warren wore his best suit, looking handsome and nervous as he waited at the altar. The ceremony was short and simple, attended by a handful of Warren's friends and ranch hands. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Warren kissed Catherine gently, a brief touch of lips that nevertheless sent a flutter through her stomach. Emma cheered, breaking the solemnity of the moment and making everyone laugh. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up in the yard laden with food prepared by Warren's friends and neighbors. Catherine met so many people that she could not keep all their names straight, but everyone was welcoming and kind. They accepted her and Emma without question, and Catherine felt the last of her anxiety begin to fade. As the evening wore on and the guests began to leave, Catherine found herself standing on the porch watching the sunset with Emma asleep in her arms. Warren came up beside her, slipping an arm around her waist in a gesture that felt both tentative and natural. "Happy?" he asked softly. "Yes," Catherine said, and realized she meant it. "Warren, I need you to know something. I did not expect this. I thought this would be a practical arrangement, a marriage of convenience. But being here with you, it feels like more than that already." "I know what you mean," Warren said. "I have felt it too, like we were meant to find each other." "I want to try to make this a real marriage," Catherine said, feeling brave. "Not just an arrangement, but something genuine." Warren turned to face her, his eyes searching hers. "I want that too, more than anything." That night, after Emma was tucked safely in her bed, Warren and Catherine came together as husband and wife for the first time. It was tentative and tender, a careful exploration that spoke of new beginnings and fragile hope. Warren was gentle and patient, and Catherine felt walls she had built around her heart begin to crumble. In the days and weeks that followed, they settled into a rhythm of life that felt increasingly natural. Catherine took over the running of the household, bringing order and beauty to the ranch house. She sewed curtains and made preserves and planted a vegetable garden near the kitchen. Emma thrived in the open spaces, following Warren around the ranch whenever he would let her, learning about horses and cattle and the endless work that went into maintaining the property. Warren proved to be everything he had promised and more. He was patient with Emma, teaching her to ride on a gentle old mare named Daisy. He was attentive to Catherine, always interested in her thoughts and opinions. At night, after Emma was asleep, they would sit together on the porch and talk about their days, their dreams, their slowly unfolding future together. One evening, about 2 months after the wedding, Warren came in from the fields looking troubled. Catherine was preparing supper, and Emma was setting the table with careful concentration. "What is wrong?" Catherine asked immediately, reading the concern in his face. "There is trouble with some of the cattle. Someone has been cutting fences and driving off small groups. It is not enough to ruin us, but it is worrying. This is the 3rd time in as many weeks." Warren ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I need to ride out tomorrow with some of the men and see if we can figure out who is behind it. Will you be safe?" Catherine asked, worry clutching at her heart. "I will be careful," Warren promised. "We are not looking for a fight, just trying to protect what is ours. But I might be gone overnight, possibly longer." Catherine did not like it, but she understood. The ranch was their livelihood, and it needed to be protected. Still, when Warren rode out the next morning with 3 of his ranch hands, she stood on the porch watching until they disappeared over the hill, feeling an ache of worry in her chest. Emma seemed to sense her mother's anxiety. "Papa Warren will be okay," she said with a child's certainty. "He is big and strong." Catherine smiled at hearing Emma call Warren Papa Warren. The little girl had started using the name about a week ago, and Warren's face had lit up like sunshine the first time he heard it. "I know he will be," Catherine said, hoping she sounded more confident than she felt. The day passed slowly. Catherine threw herself into household tasks, baking bread and mending clothes and scrubbing floors that did not really need scrubbing. Emma played quietly, seeming to understand that her mother needed to keep busy. By evening, Catherine was exhausted but no less worried. Night fell, and still Warren did not return. Catherine lay in their bed, staring at the ceiling and straining to hear the sound of horses approaching. She must have eventually fallen asleep because she woke suddenly to the sound of voices outside. Catherine pulled on her robe and hurried downstairs, her heart pounding. She opened the door to find Warren dismounting from his horse, his shirt torn and a bloody bandage wrapped around his left arm. One of the ranch hands supported him as he walked toward the house. "It is not as bad as it looks," Warren said quickly when he saw Catherine's face. "We found the rustlers and got the cattle back. There was a scuffle and I caught a knife across the arm, but it is just a shallow cut." Catherine ushered him inside and made him sit at the kitchen table while she examined the wound. It was indeed not deep, but it was long and still oozing blood. She cleaned it carefully and wrapped it with fresh bandages, her hands steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "You should have been a nurse," Warren said, attempting to lighten the mood. "You should have been more careful," Catherine retorted, but her voice shook. Warren caught her hand, stilling her movements. "Catherine, look at me." She met his eyes and saw warmth and understanding there. "I am all right, I promise. And we got all the cattle back. The rustlers were just a couple of drifters looking for easy money. The sheriff has them now. It is over." Catherine felt tears spill over despite her efforts to hold them back. "I was so worried. I kept thinking about what would happen to Emma and me if something happened to you. We have only just found you. I cannot lose you too." Warren pulled her into his lap, wrapping his good arm around her and tucking her head under his chin. "You are not going to lose me. I intend to stick around for a very long time. I have too much to live for now. Promise me you will always come back," Catherine whispered. "I promise," Warren said solemnly. "Always." They sat like that for a long moment, holding each other in the quiet kitchen. Then Catherine pulled back and looked at him seriously. "Warren, I need to tell you something. These past 2 months with you have been the happiest of my life. I did not think I could feel this way again after my first husband died. But you have given me so much, not just security and a home, but real happiness. I think I am falling in love with you." Warren's face transformed, joy spreading across his features like sunrise. "Catherine, I have been in love with you almost from the moment you stepped off that stagecoach. I did not want to rush you or make you feel pressured, so I have been trying to be patient. But hearing you say that, it is everything I hoped for." He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and Catherine felt warmth flood through her entire body. This was not the tentative affection of those first nights, but something fiercer and more certain. This was love, real and growing stronger every day. "I love you," Warren said against her lips. "You and Emma both. You have made my life complete." "I love you too," Catherine whispered back. "So much." They went upstairs together, and that night their lovemaking was different, charged with the emotion of their declarations and the relief of Warren's safe return. Afterward, Catherine lay in Warren's arms feeling more content than she had ever thought possible. Life continued at the ranch, marked by the changing seasons and the steady work of building a life together. Emma grew like a weed, becoming more confident and adventurous every day. She learned to ride properly, spending hours in the saddle with Warren teaching her the ins and outs of ranching. She made friends with the ranch hands, who doted on her like fond uncles. She was happy in a way that made Catherine's heart sing. As autumn painted the hills in shades of gold and red, Catherine began to notice changes in her own body. At first, she dismissed it as nothing, but when her courses failed to arrive for the second month in a row, she could no longer ignore the truth. She was pregnant. The realization filled her with a complex mixture of emotions. Joy, certainly, but also fear. She had lost a baby between Emma's birth and her first husband's death, and the memory of that grief still haunted her. What if something went wrong again? What if she could not carry this child to term? She kept the news to herself for several days, wrestling with her feelings and trying to find the right moment to tell Warren. But he noticed her distraction, of course. He always seemed to notice everything about her. "Catherine, What is troubling you?" He asked one evening as they prepared for bed. "You have been quiet lately. Are you not feeling well?" "I am fine," Catherine said, then sighed. "Actually, no, I am not fine. I am pregnant, Warren. I am going to have a baby." Warren stared at her for a moment, processing the information. Then his face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. "A baby! We are going to have a baby." "Yes," Catherine said, and felt her own smile forming despite her worries. "I think I am about 2 months along, maybe a little more." Warren let out a whoop of joy and swept her up in his arms, spinning her around before setting her down carefully. "This is wonderful news. Why do you look worried? Are you not happy about it?" "I am happy," Catherine assured him. "But Warren, I lost a baby before. What if the same thing happens again? I do not think I could bear it." Warren's expression sobered, and he cupped her face gently in his hands. "Whatever happens, we will face it together. But Catherine, I truly believe everything is going to be fine. You are strong and healthy, and this time you have me to take care of you. I am not going to let anything happen to you or our baby." His confidence was contagious, and Catherine felt some of her anxiety ease. "You really think it will be all right?" "I know it will," Warren said firmly. "And Emma is going to be thrilled to be a big sister." He was right about that. When they told Emma the next morning at breakfast, the little girl squealed with delight and began planning immediately for the baby's arrival. "Can the baby sleep in my room?" Emma asked eagerly. "I can help take care of it and teach it things." "We will see," Catherine said, laughing. "The baby will not be here until spring, so we have plenty of time to decide." As her pregnancy progressed, Warren became even more attentive and protective. He would not let Catherine do any heavy lifting, and he fussed over her constantly, making sure she was eating enough and resting properly. It was both endearing and occasionally frustrating when she felt perfectly capable of doing things herself. "Warren, I am pregnant, not an invalid," she protested one afternoon when he insisted on carrying in the laundry basket for her. "I know," he said, completely unrepentant, "but you are carrying precious cargo, and I intend to take no chances." Emma mimicked her stepfather's protective behavior, bringing Catherine cushions and treats, and generally being as helpful as a 5-year-old could be. Catherine found herself surrounded by so much love and care that her earlier fears gradually faded. Winter arrived with its cold winds and occasional snow, though San Francisco's climate was milder than what Catherine had known in Boston. The ranch work slowed somewhat during the winter months, giving Warren more time to spend with his growing family. They spent long evenings by the fire, with Emma playing with her dolls and Catherine working on baby clothes while Warren read aloud from whatever book they were currently enjoying. On Christmas morning, Warren surprised Catherine and Emma with gifts he had secretly purchased on his trips to town. For Emma, there was a beautiful doll with real hair and a wardrobe of tiny dresses. For Catherine, there was a delicate gold locket on a chain. "Open it," Warren encouraged, watching her face. Catherine opened the locket and found 2 tiny photographs inside. One was of Emma, taken at a studio in San Francisco. The other was of Warren himself, looking handsome and serious in his best clothes. "So you can keep us close to your heart always," Warren said softly. Catherine felt tears well up, though that seemed to happen at the smallest provocation these days. "It is perfect. I love it. I love you." "I love you too," Warren said, kissing her gently. "Both of you. All 3 of you," he added, placing a hand on her rounded belly. As winter gave way to spring, Catherine grew large with child. The baby was active, kicking and turning at all hours, and Warren loved to place his hand on her belly and feel the movements. "Strong little one," he would say with pride. "Takes after the mother." On a warm April morning when the wildflowers were blooming across the hills, Catherine's labor began. Warren sent one of the ranch hands to fetch the midwife from town while he stayed with Catherine, holding her hand and offering whatever comfort he could. Emma was sent to stay with one of the neighboring ranch families, though she protested tearfully. "I want to stay with Mama." "I will be fine, sweetheart," Catherine assured her daughter between contractions. "Papa Warren will take good care of me. You go and have fun with the Mitchell children, and when you come home, you will have a baby brother or sister." The labor was long and difficult, lasting well into the night. Warren stayed by Catherine's side throughout, offering her water and cool cloths and encouragement. The midwife, an experienced woman named Mrs. Henderson, directed things with calm efficiency. "You are doing wonderfully," Warren kept saying, though Catherine could see the worry in his eyes. "Easy for you to say," Catherine gasped between pains. "You are not the one doing this." "I would trade places with you if I could," Warren said seriously, and Catherine believed him. Finally, as dawn was breaking over the hills, their son was born. He came into the world with a lusty cry that announced his displeasure at being disturbed. Mrs. Henderson cleaned him up and wrapped him in a soft blanket before placing him in Catherine's arms. "A fine, healthy boy," the midwife announced with satisfaction. "About 8 pounds, I would say, and strong as an ox." Catherine looked down at her son's red, wrinkled face and felt love crash over her like a wave. He was perfect, absolutely perfect. She looked up to find Warren staring at the baby with an expression of awe and wonder. "Would you like to hold your son?" she asked softly. Warren nodded, seeming almost afraid to touch the tiny bundle. But once the baby was in his arms, his nervousness faded. He looked at the child with such pure love and tenderness that Catherine felt tears slide down her cheeks. "Hello, little one," Warren said quietly. "I am your papa, and I promise to love you and protect you for as long as I live." The baby's eyes opened at the sound of Warren's voice, unfocused but somehow seeming to look right at him. Warren laughed, a sound full of joy and amazement. "What should we name him?" Catherine asked. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but had never settled on anything definite. Warren looked thoughtful for a moment, then said, "What about Henry? Henry Irving. It was my grandfather's name. He was a good man, strong and honest." "Henry," Catherine repeated, testing the name. "Yes, I like that. Henry Bradford Irving." "Henry Bradford Irving," Warren echoed, including Catherine's maiden name as she had suggested. "Welcome to the family, son." When Emma came home later that day and met her baby brother, she was initially disappointed that the baby could not play with her right away. But as Henry wrapped his tiny fingers around her finger, she melted. "He is so small," Emma breathed. "Mama, can I help take care of him?" "Of course you can," Catherine said. "You are his big sister. He is going to need you to teach him all sorts of things." Emma took her role very seriously from that moment on, always wanting to be involved in Henry's care. She would fetch diapers and help with baths and sing him songs when he fussed. Warren and Catherine watched their children together with hearts full of gratitude for the family they had built. As the months passed, Henry grew from a tiny infant into a chubby, cheerful baby who seemed to find joy in everything. He adored Emma, tracking her movements with his eyes and laughing whenever she played with him. He was equally devoted to Warren, calming instantly whenever his father picked him up. Life at the ranch was busy and full. The cattle and horse operation was thriving under Warren's management, allowing them to save money and make improvements to the property. Catherine's garden flourished, providing fresh vegetables throughout the summer and preserves for the winter. Emma started attending the small school in town 3 days a week, riding in with Warren when he had business there, and coming home full of stories about her lessons and friends. One evening in late summer, When Henry was about 4 months old, the family gathered on the porch to watch the sunset. Emma was reading aloud from her school primer, proud to show off her growing skills. Henry was nursing at Catherine's breast, his eyes drooping with contentment. Warren sat with his arm around Catherine's shoulders, listening to Emma's halting words and occasionally helping her with a difficult passage. "I am so happy," Emma announced suddenly, setting down her book. "I love our family." "Me too," Catherine said, kissing the top of her daughter's head. "We are very lucky." "I used to be sad sometimes," Emma continued with the honesty of childhood. "When it was just me and Mama, I would remember my other papa and feel sad. But now I have Papa Warren and Henry, and I am not sad anymore." Catherine felt her throat tighten with emotion. Warren reached over and took Emma's hand. "Your first papa loved you very much," he said gently. "And I am sure he would be happy to know that you are loved and safe now. You can keep him in your heart and still be part of this family. There is room for all of it." "I know," Emma said. "That is what Mama tells me too. I think my first papa would have liked you, Papa Warren. You are both good papas." Warren blinked rapidly, and Catherine saw that his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Thank you, Emma. That means more to me than you know." That night, after the children were asleep, Catherine and Warren lay in bed talking quietly. "I never imagined my life would be like this," Warren said. "When I placed that advertisement, I hoped for companionship, maybe eventually affection. But this, what we have, it is beyond anything I dreamed of." "I feel the same way," Catherine admitted. "When I left Boston, I was just desperate for safety and stability. I did not expect to find love. But Warren, I love you so completely it sometimes frightens me." "You have given me and Emma a beautiful life." "You have given me just as much," Warren insisted. "More even. Before you came, I was just existing, going through the motions. But you made me start living again. You, Emma, and Henry, you are my whole world." They made love that night with a tenderness born of deep intimacy and trust. Afterward, Catherine lay with her head on Warren's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Warren," she said softly. When you first saw me at the Stagecoach Depot and you realized I had Emma with me, what did you really think? Were you disappointed?" Warren was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "Honestly, I was nervous. I worried that I would not be a good father, that I would not know how to connect with a child who was not my own blood. But then Emma hugged me when I showed her the quilt, and something just clicked. I looked at her, and I looked at you, and I thought, this is it. This is what I have been waiting for, not just a wife, but a family." "You are an amazing father," Catherine said firmly. "To both Emma and Henry, they are so lucky to have you." "I am the lucky one," Warren said, kissing the top of her head. "I get to wake up every morning and see the three people I love most in the world. What could be better than that?" The following year brought both challenges and joys. A harsh winter killed some of the cattle, requiring Warren to dip into their savings to rebuild the herd. Emma came down with a fever that had them both terrified, until it finally broke after 3 long days. Henry took his first steps and spoke his first word, which was "Dada," much to Warren's delight and Catherine's pretend indignation. But through it all, their love for each other only grew stronger. Warren continued to be devoted to his family, working long hours to provide for them, but always making time to be present for the important moments. Catherine thrived in her role as wife and mother, finding fulfillment in creating a warm and loving home. Emma blossomed into a confident and kind-hearted child, equally at ease helping her mother in the kitchen or following her father around the ranch. And Henry grew into a happy, adventurous toddler who kept them all on their toes. On their 3rd wedding anniversary, Warren surprised Catherine with a gift. He led her outside after dinner, where a new buggy stood waiting, freshly painted and fitted with cushioned seats. "For you," he said, looking pleased with himself. "So you can drive into town whenever you want without having to take the wagon or wait for me to be free." Catherine was overwhelmed. The buggy represented freedom and independence, and the fact that Warren understood that showed how well he knew her. "It is too much," she protested weakly, even as her fingers traced the smooth wood. "Nothing is too much for you," Warren said. "You work so hard taking care of all of us and managing the household. You deserve something that is just for you." "Thank you," Catherine said, standing on her toes to kiss him. "I love it, and I love you." "I have something else," Warren said, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. "I have been thinking about this for a while, and I finally talked to a lawyer about it. I want to formally adopt Emma. Make her an Irving in the eyes of the law, not just in our hearts, but only if you and she want that." Catherine felt tears spring to her eyes. "Warren, are you serious?" "Completely serious. Emma is my daughter in every way that matters. I want her to have my name and know that she is truly mine." "What do you think?" "I think it is perfect," Catherine said, her voice breaking. "Emma will be thrilled." They told Emma that evening, and as predicted, the little girl was overjoyed. "I will be Emma Irving, really and truly," Warren confirmed. "You will always remember your first father, and that is good and right. But I want you to know that you are my daughter too, and I am proud to give you my name." Emma launched herself into Warren's arms, hugging him tightly. "I love you, Papa Warren. You are the best papa in the whole world." The adoption was finalized a month later, and they celebrated with a family party at the ranch. Friends and neighbors came to mark the occasion, bringing food and gifts and good wishes. Emma wore a new dress that Catherine had made for her and carried herself with pride at being an Irving. As Catherine watched Warren dance with Emma while Henry clapped along from her arms, she felt a profound sense of contentment. 3 years ago, she had arrived in San Francisco terrified and uncertain, carrying her daughter and little else. Now she had a husband who loved her, 2 beautiful children, and a life richer than she ever could have imagined. That night, after the guests had gone and the children were asleep, Catherine and Warren sat together in their bedroom. "Thank you," Catherine said simply. "For what?" Warren asked, genuinely puzzled. "For everything. For accepting Emma from the very beginning. For loving me. For building this life with me. When I answered your advertisement, I was just hoping for security and kindness, but you have given me so much more than that." Warren pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her securely. "Catherine, that first day when I saw you and Emma standing at the depot, I said to myself that I now had 2 reasons to be happy. And I was right. But over time, it became so much more than that. You are not just reasons to be happy. You are my whole heart, all 3 of you. 2 reasons to be happy," Catherine repeated, smiling at the memory. "I remember how nervous I was that day, wondering if you would send us away when you saw Emma. But you smiled at her so kindly, and I knew everything would be all right." "I could never have sent you away," Warren said. "It was obvious from the moment I saw you that you were meant to be here. You belonged with me, even though we had just met." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, simply enjoying being close to each other. Then Catherine said, "I have been thinking about something." "What is that?" "I think I might like to have another baby. Henry will be too soon, and I would love for him to have a sibling close in age the way Emma has him." "What do you think?" Warren's face lit up with joy. "I would love that. I love being a father, and I love our family. The more the merrier, I say," Catherine laughed. "You might regret those words when you are outnumbered by children." "Never," Warren said firmly. "I could never regret any child we might have together." As fate would have it, Catherine found herself pregnant again that fall. This pregnancy was easier than the one with Henry had been, perhaps because she was calmer and more confident. She continued her usual activities well into her pregnancy, only slowing down when her size made it difficult to move around easily. Emma, now 8 years old, was thrilled at the prospect of another sibling. She helped Catherine prepare the nursery and made plans for how she would help with the new baby. Henry, at 2.5, did not quite understand what was happening, but seemed to pick up on the excitement in the household. Warren was even more protective this time around, having experienced the terror of childbirth once before. He hovered constantly, much to Catherine's amusement and occasional exasperation. "Warren, I have done this before," she reminded him when he insisted on helping her upstairs for the 3rd time in one day. "I am perfectly capable of climbing stairs." "I know," he said, unrepentant, "but humor me, I worry about you." "I know you do," Catherine said, softening. "And I love you for it. But truly, everything is fine. The midwife says I am very healthy and the baby is growing well." Their daughter was born on a bright spring morning in 1879, arriving so quickly that Mrs. Henderson barely made it in time. She was smaller than Henry had been, but perfectly healthy, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that worked very well indeed. "Another child to spoil," Warren said, cradling his daughter with practiced ease. "What shall we name her?" "I have been thinking about that," Catherine said. "What about Lillian? It was my mother's name and I would like to honor her memory." "Lillian Irving," Warren said, testing the name. "It is beautiful. Lily for short." "Perfect," Catherine agreed. Emma was smitten with her baby sister from the moment she saw her. She appointed herself Lily's guardian and helper, always wanting to hold her or rock her or help with her care. Henry was less certain at first, eyeing the tiny interloper with suspicion, but he gradually warmed up to her, especially when she started smiling at him. With 3 children now, life at the ranch was even busier than before. Catherine's days were filled with cooking and cleaning and childcare, while Warren managed the ranch and helped with the children whenever he could. They hired a young woman from town to help with the housework, a few days a week, giving Catherine some much-needed relief. Despite the chaos and exhaustion that came with raising young children, Catherine had never been happier. Her life was full and rich, surrounded by love and laughter. Warren remained the steady center of their family, always ready with a kind word or a helping hand or a joke to lighten the mood. The years passed in a blur of milestones and memories. Emma grew into a beautiful and capable young woman, taking on more responsibilities around the ranch and beginning to attract the attention of young men in town, much to Warren's consternation. Henry developed into a sturdy boy who loved the outdoors and animals, spending every possible moment with the horses. Lily proved to be the most spirited of the 3 children, full of energy and curiosity about everything. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Warren took Catherine on a trip to San Francisco, leaving the children in the capable care of Emma and the ranch hands for a weekend. It was the first time they had been alone together since Lily's birth, and it felt both strange and wonderful. They stayed in a hotel overlooking the bay and spent their days exploring the city that had changed so much since Catherine's arrival. San Francisco had grown and modernized, with electric lights beginning to appear and paved streets replacing some of the mud roads Catherine remembered. On their last evening, they had dinner at a nice restaurant and then walked along the waterfront, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. "You ever regret it?" Warren asked suddenly. "Answering my advertisement and coming out here, you left everything you knew behind." Catherine turned to look at him, seeing the vulnerability in his expression. Even after all these years, he still needed reassurance sometimes. Warren Irving, I have never regretted it for a single moment, she said firmly. You gave me and Emma a new life when we desperately needed one. You loved us when we were strangers. You have been the most wonderful husband and father I could have imagined. How could I ever regret that? I just want you to be happy, Warren said. That is all I have ever wanted. I am happy, Catherine assured him. Incredibly, wonderfully happy. My only regret is that I did not meet you sooner so we could have had even more time together. Warren pulled her close and kissed her, a deep kiss full of passion and tenderness and a decade of shared history. I love you, Catherine Irving, more every day. I love you too, Catherine said against his lips. Always. They returned to the ranch the next day to find that everything had run smoothly in their absence. Emma had managed the household competently, and the younger children were none the worse for their parents' brief absence. The reunion was joyful, with Henry and Lily tackling Warren in a hug and chattering about everything that had happened while they were gone. As Catherine watched her family together, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for how her life had turned out. She thought back to that frightened young widow who had stepped off the stage-coach 10 years ago, clutching her daughter's hand and hoping for nothing more than safety. She had found that and so much more. She had found love, real and lasting and true. She had found a partner who respected and cherished her. She had found a father for Emma who loved her as his own. She had given Warren 2 more children, creating a family that was vibrant and full of life. She had found home. The years continued to unfold with their mixture of ordinary moments and special occasions. Emma eventually married a young rancher from a neighboring property, staying close enough to visit often and eventually providing Warren and Catherine with their first grandchild. Henry followed in his father's footsteps, taking over more and more of the ranch operations as Warren began to slow down with age. Lily, true to her spirited nature, announced her intention to become a teacher, pursuing an education in San Francisco before returning to teach at the local school. Through it all, Catherine and Warren's love remained the foundation on which everything else was built. They grew old together, their hair turning gray and their faces acquiring lines that spoke of years of laughter and tears and everything in between. They became fixtures in the community, known for their kindness and hospitality and the obvious devotion they had for each other. One evening, when they were both well into their 60s, they sat together on the porch as they had done countless times before. The ranch was quieter now, with Henry and his young family living in a house they had built nearby and managing most of the daily operations. Emma visited frequently with her growing brood of children. Lily was away at school but came home whenever she could. You remember the day we met? Catherine asked, taking Warren's weathered hand in hers. Every detail, Warren said. You wore a blue dress and you looked so scared. Emma was hiding behind your skirts, peeking at me. I remember thinking you were the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. I was terrified, Catherine admitted. I thought you might turn us away when you saw Emma. So many men would have. I was never going to do that, Warren said. I took one look at the 2 of you and knew my life was about to change for the better, and I was right. You gave me everything I ever wanted, Catherine. Love, family, purpose, joy, everything. You gave me those things too, Catherine said softly. You saved us, Warren, Emma and me both, and you gave me a love I never thought I would find again. 2 reasons to be happy, Warren said, echoing his words from so long ago. That is what I thought when I saw you and Emma, but it became so much more than that. 3 reasons, 4, 5 as our family grew, but really, it was always just one reason. You, Catherine, loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life. Catherine felt tears slide down her weathered cheeks, but they were happy tears. I love you, Warren Irving. I have loved you for more than 40 years, and I will love you for whatever time we have left. And I love you, Warren said, pulling her close and kissing her forehead. Always and forever. They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors that reminded Catherine of that first evening at the ranch so many years ago. She had been right to take the risk, to answer that advertisement and travel across the country with Emma. Everything she had hoped for, and so much more, had come from that brave decision. She thought about the scared young widow she had been, and the confident woman she had become. She thought about Emma, grown now with children of her own, who had found security and love in Warren from the very beginning. She thought about Henry and Lily, the children born of her love with Warren, both thriving and building their own lives. She thought about the grandchildren, each one a blessing and a joy. But mostly she thought about Warren, the man who had looked at a widow with a small child and seen not a burden but a blessing. The man who had given them his name, his home, his heart without reservation. The man who had proven every single day that love could be found even in the most unexpected circumstances. As darkness fell and the stars began to appear overhead, Catherine whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" Warren asked, though surely he must know by now. "For everything," Catherine said simply. "For being you, for loving us, for this beautiful life." Warren tightened his arm around her shoulders, and they sat in the comfortable silence of two people who had shared a lifetime together. The ranch was quiet around them, full of memories and love and the promise of generations to come. Emma's children would inherit this land someday, and they would tell their own children about the mail-order bride who arrived with a small daughter, and the cowboy who said he had 2 reasons to be happy. And that cowboy and his bride, they would live on in the legacy they built together, a legacy of love and family and courage. Catherine had taken a chance on a man she had never met, trusting in hope and desperation. Warren had taken a chance on a woman with a child, trusting in his heart that told him this was right. Together, they had built something beautiful and lasting, a love story that began with a stagecoach arrival and would echo through generations. Catherine knew that when her time came, she would go without regrets, secure in the knowledge that she had been truly loved and had loved truly in return. And Warren, her steady partner through all the years, would know the same. The Wild West, with all its challenges and adventures, had been the backdrop for their story, but the story itself was timeless. A tale of 2 souls finding each other and building a life together, despite the odds. From that first moment at the San Francisco depot to this quiet evening decades later, their love had been the constant, the foundation, the reason for everything. Catherine leaned her head against Warren's shoulder, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong, and smiled. They had done well, she thought. They had done very well indeed. 2 reasons to be happy had become 1,000 reasons, each day bringing new blessings and new joys. But at the center of it all was the simple truth that had sustained them through everything. They loved each other, completely and without reservation, and that love had made all the difference.